up. We've got a couple of minutes here for questions. Reminder, if you have questions, to put them into that Q&A, not the regular chat, but the Q&A little thing in Teams. We do have a couple of questions. First is from Brad Jolliffe. So southward of 84 South, will there be any favoritism for leaning towards the far side or the near side, the Earth visible side? I guess that's probably for Sam, but also maybe for Jake.
I mean, I can take a crack at that, Sam, and you can supplement however you see fit. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's certainly something that we know we want to work towards. If the question is a general question, I think as we continue to proceed and capabilities increase and we have in place capabilities that enable us to communicate, to navigate, once we're over on that far side where we can't see the Earth from, I don't know that there will be favoritism for it, but if it's traceable to the objectives that we're trying to accomplish, I think it's certainly in the trade space for what we want to do. I do want to note that we are also sensitive to the fact that the radio silent far side of the moon is basically a resource that we also want to protect. So like everything else that we talk about, we want to understand the breadth of objectives that people hope to try to address from lunar exploration and make sure that we do this in a responsible manner and account for that. So, I think if the question is specific to Artemis 4, I don't think there's necessarily specific favoritism to trying to be on the far side. I think what you really want to discuss today is what do we need to be able to do to contribute to the objectives that you're being asked to talk about. I don't know, Sam, if you want to add anything to that, but that's how I see it from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we will attempt to go to the places that offer the best opportunities to achieve the mission objectives, right? So if that happens to be on the far side, we'll take a hard look at it and see what can and cannot be done. This came up yesterday, actually. I tend to be very conservative, so I think, I would naturally gravitate towards near side locations, but at the same time, if we can swing it and the architecture at that particular moment in time can support it, then it certainly would be actively considered and fairly considered. So there's no bias for and against, just depends on when capabilities phase in and when we can leverage them most appropriately. A lot of interesting destinations on the far side to go to.
That is for sure. Okay, next question, probably also for Jake, from Lawrence Civil. Starship has a lot of payload capability. Is utilizing this capability to deploy post-mission infrastructure like data collection and transmission to Earth surface power to support autonomous science instruments and later missions returning to the same site being considered. I will say we have payloads on Artemis 3 that are intended to last past the launch. We've got LEMS is hoping to last even 2 years. But that is self-contained. It does not rely on any infrastructure. So maybe Jake, you can talk about other plans.
Yeah, specific to Artemis 3, again, always want to call back to this being a test flight, right? This is the first time that this lander has gone to the moon. So the requirements that we had for that were in an effort not to make this mission too complicated so that they can fly it. They certainly have additional capability. And remember, one of the other things that we're working towards is helping industry and partners develop their perspective of what a lunar economy will become. So SpaceX or any company that we work with will need to meet the requirements we have, but we are also trying to make sure that they have some flexibility to use their resources as well for themselves. Now, I think the answer ultimately is very similar to Brad's question about the far side. The options are there, and we will work with any provider to make sure that we try to maximize our ability to continue to develop those capabilities over time. So, I do want to set the expectations as reasonable as possible for Artemis 3. We're not trying to make that mission overly complicated, but as we learn that how those systems operate and each of the landers that we're working with operate, the types of questions you're asking are questions we'll be asking as well. Like, how can we maximize the value of these missions to meet those statements I said about building up infrastructure and capability over time? And to Sarah's point, I think what we're testing out here on this first one is with the resources we do have that were in our requirements, we will, be starting to deploy payloads that we were trying to test that out, right? Can we survive after that lander is no longer there? And so we want to. I think if Sarah, you you would say, yeah, we definitely want those payloads to operate, but we really are kind of testing that all out right now, and that'll be our first time really deploying payloads with astronauts on the moon in multiple decades. So I think we're heading in the direction aligned with the questions you're asking, but I can't say yes or no in particular just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think reiterate, Jake, that you talked about these phases of lunar exploration, and we're still in this return to the moon phase where we are learning and testing, but we do expect to build up infrastructure to have a longer term presence as we go along and learn how to do these things. All right, this is another one for Jake, I suspect. It says for Jake. Although SpaceX Starship is the planned HLS, is there any scenario in which Starship is replaced by Blue Origin Blue Moon Lander as the HLS for Artemis 4? Or are the timeline and engineering for 3 and 4 firmly dependent on Starship's readiness?
Politely, I'm not going to try to get too far into that conversation. I mean, we don't know that, right? Right now, we have SpaceX under contract for the first 2 landings. That's what it is right now. But as I noted, we're always exploring the options and the trade space that we have to find the best ways to increase our capability. So, the answer is right now that's SpaceX. We have SpaceX for 3 and 4.
Thanks, Jake. And we have a question from a student. Maybe Barb wants to take this one. For Artemis 3, are the operational procedures for conducting EVA going to be different from Apollo, like sample selection and field observations?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, we are taking all the lessons we have learned from Apollo, but since Apollo, we've had 50 plus years of experience in scientific sampling with other assets like robotic assets, how to involve the science team, how to understand field sites remotely using avatars or using images. We also have a lot more information about the moon itself through missions like the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, GRAIL, Chandrayaan. A whole bunch of other missions have helped us understand the surface better. So the principles by which Apollo explored the moon are really solid field geology principles. The specifics of them change, but the way that we explore the moon as a planet using our field geology knowledge is going to be pretty similar.
Anybody else want to add anything to that?
I'll just add a few words that, a really valuable asset is Apollo in real time, and you can find it online. Our colleague Ben Feist has put this together. And for anyone interested in EVAs and how they're conducted in Apollo, just watching those videos and listening to the dialogue from the crew members on the surface and then the folks in Houston, it's really, really educational. And you learn a lot about how the operations worked. And because as Barbara said, that was rooted in really solid fundamental field geology. So I think we take a lot of that and we've learned a lot and port that into Artemis 3 as well. So I think it's going to be great.
I agree. All right, one for Sam from Allison Zuniga. What were the figures of merit for Artemis 3 landing sites? Why did the number of landing sites go from 13 to 9 potential landing sites? What were the FOMs that drove down the number of sites? Can you just talk a little bit about the history of Artemis 3 landing site planning?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate the question. First and foremost, a gentle correction. Those are not landing sites. Those are candidate landing regions. Each one is about 10 by 10 kilometers. Within each region, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of candidate landing sites that have been and are being aggressively evaluated by NASA for landing site suitability and safety considerations. So in general, for Artemis 3, the first landed mission to the moon in 5 decades, the overriding figure of merit is crew safety, first and foremost. And so as we went through these figures of merit, adjudications, and doing the down selection from 13 candidate notional regions of prospective interest down to 9 candidate notional regions of prospective interest, that was done in close consultation with our commercial services providers and with the Moon to Mars Program Office in an effort to maximize the chances of safely executing the mission. So that's the very short version of how that decision came to be. Dr. Bleacher may have additional thoughts because he's actually on the CASA board.
I think that covered it really well, Sam. I mean, I said it during my presentation, right? The safety of our friends, NASA's astronauts is first and foremost here, and this is a test flight of a new landing system. So a lot of figures of merit in identifying places we can safely get to and return home. The requirements that we placed on SpaceX were designed that way as well. So it's a mix of working towards where we want to go and where we can safely go to prove out the system. That's what human lunar return segment is all about. Let's demonstrate those systems, make sure that we get there. I think the first time getting back there to the moon, especially in a place we've never even been to before, the samples we'll get back, the observations we'll be able to make will be very valuable. And that, we've had those conversations across our directorates. And then once we know that we can get that done, that puts us in a position to have discussions like you'll have today. Like, well, now really, where do we want to go? If we want to try to address certain objectives, and we can start to work that way. Again, driving home this point about through time, demonstrating our capabilities and then increasing those capabilities as we move forward.
And just to confirm, we are doing that for Artemis 3. Our Artemis 3 geology team has been looking at those individual sites and assessing them for science, and there's lots of good science to be done, to be sure. Okay, I think we are over time, actually. So we will end our Q&A and turn it over to the next session.